If you're a villager, I wanted to remind you about our great new improv show coming up on September 29th at 6:30 at the Rohan Recreation Center. The show is for villagers and folks who have a guest pass. It's going to be the funniest show ever with 2 new improv players heading the cast. Reserved seating at tables of 8. Bring your own snacks and favorite adult beverages. Get your tickets at my.allevents.in/improv 929. But remember, it's only for villagers who like to laugh.
Welcome to Season 7 of Open Forum in the Villages, Florida. In this show, we talk to leaders of clubs and interesting folks who live in and around the villages. We also talk to people who have information vital to seniors. You will get perspectives of what is happening in the Villages, Florida area. We are a listener-supported podcast. There will be shout-outs for supporters.
This is Mike Roth. Listeners, I'm thrilled to share with you this podcast, my passion project for you. This podcast brings you knowledge, inspiration, and things you need to know about the people and the villages here in Florida. I'm here today with John Bawol. John, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me.
John has joined our improvisational theater club and is going to be in our September 29th improv show. John, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your own background? What'd you do before you got to the villages?
Before I got to the villages, I originally started my career working in the electronics industry for 20 plus years. And after that, I moved to northern Michigan and got a job as a 911 dispatcher. I did that for a few years and worked my way up as a supervisor and became a 911 director. So I saw from the beginning to the end, and after that, I decided that I had done enough, and I worked for AT&T as their 911 specialist and their product specialist, actually, and was a troubleshooter for them for 7 years. After that, I decided to retire, and my wife and I enjoyed our time in northern Michigan. We got tired of shoveling 4 feet of snow and having 2.5 feet of ice on the lake. We decided we were going to look for somewhere else to live, and we wanted a warm climate. We had family in Arizona, and we did that for a few years. Then we decided to come down to Florida, and my wife says, let's try the villages. So we did, and we fell in love with the villages. It was just a great time, so much to do, and it was like Disneyland to us. And we did that. We came back for a second year, and as we were driving down from Michigan, my wife says, we're not leaving until we find a house. And this last March, we actually found a house, closed on it, went back to Michigan, sold our house, and now we've been in the villages living here full time for a little over a month.
Good. It's not unusual for people to tell me that they moved to the villages because they thought it was Disneyland for adults. And in many respects it is. John, why don't you tell our listeners about your experience as an improv player when you were in Michigan?
In Michigan, we had a instructor who actually taught at one of the schools. He was a theater instructor, and during the summer, he said, I'm going to teach an improv course. So I saw it in the paper, and I would go, I'm interested in that. I did some community theater prior to that, and I was always interested in improv just because it was quick-witted, and actually being in the public safety sector, you have to be a little quick-witted. You have to be on your toes all the time. So it was almost like a continuation of that. And so I took the class, and it was like a 6 or 8 week class about 8 years ago. And so we did the class, and the instructor says, why don't we invite your family and friends and let's do a little show for them? So we expected 25 to 30 people, and over 100 people showed up. And so we did it, and it was absolutely amazing. It was a rush. You got done, and You were hyped up like you had run a marathon. It was so much fun. And the crowds, the people said, we asked, should we do it again? And they said, yeah. So we started doing a show every other month. And for 8 years we did it. We would pass a hat at the end of the night. We didn't charge anybody. We passed a hat at the end of the night. And in these 8 years, we collected over $40,000, which we donated to local charities.
And what part of Michigan was that?
This was northern Michigan, the Houghton Lake area. If you think of Michigan as a mitten, we were about 3/4 of the way north in a little town that I lived at was called St. Helena.
Okay. So that was in the northern peninsula.
No, it was the northern part of the lower peninsula.
Ah, okay.
The northern part we were still a troll. We were below the bridge. And the people who live above the bridge would call us trolls or fudgies because they sold a lot of fudge on Mackinac Island, which is just not that area.
Yeah, I visited Mackinac Island a couple of times. Very nice place. In fact, Wayne Richards, who accompanies our improv group, wrote the theme song that the Girl Scouts used, appropriated for Mackinac Island.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes. And why don't you share with our listeners what your singular best experience was in an improv skit?
Probably the best one, that improv skit that we did that was the most fun for me actually was something called Newscasters. And I was one of the newscasters, and I was able to do a little comedy at the beginning of that lead story and then hand over the newscast to my co-anchor who would do a little comedy skit. And then in turn, we would have the weather person give the weather. And that way you could ad-lib back and forth. And we had a sports person that we could ad-lib back and forth with. And that's my favorite skit to do, is that one.
One of my favorite skits in our show is the customer service skit.
Oh, that is a timeless skit because we've all dealt with customer service.
Right.
And we've all had the frustration of not getting good customer service. And you think about it, so many people, when you get good customer service, you're really happy that you've gotten that. But we all go through the trials and tribulations. And when we're doing customer service, people can relate to it because they've all had that.
Right.
And that's what's great about improv. It's not just trying to be funny. It's taking everyday things that are funny that people can relate
Right.
to.
I remember one of the first times we did that skit, Larry Rotkin, our assistant director, came up with it. We did it at a private party. The take from the audience what product we had customer service problems with was a vacuum. So Larry begins the skit by calling for customer service, and he tells the first representative, this thing just doesn't suck.
That's always a good line for a vacuum.
Right. And the scene went uphill and downhill from there.
Yeah, it's always great. And with my 911 background that I've had, 911, you can be very sarcastic when you're not talking on the phone or on the radio because it's a lot of serious things, and it's sometimes used to just break the tension of what's going on. So I rely a lot on that also.
Okay, can you give us an example of a funny thing that happened to you when you were in the 911 business?
Oh, one of my favorite stories was I answered the phone. This is when I was a dispatcher. I answered the phone and I said, 911, what's your emergency? And we looked at the screen, and the screen, of course, tells you the address, the phone number, the name of the person calling. So I get the information, and it was one of our frequent flyers. 80% of the calls come from 20% of the population. It's that old 80-20 rule that happens in a lot of businesses. And so this gentleman is on the phone, and I said, I'll take the call. So I take it, and I go, 911, what's your emergency? And he goes, I'm out of toilet paper. And I said, sir, that is not an emergency. He had the greatest line that I'll never forget. He goes, from where I'm sitting, it is. And I said, can you hold on a moment, please? So I put him on hold. I called the ambulance bar that usually responded because he was a medical patient. And I said, are you doing anything right now? And they said, no. And I said, Mr. Smith called us, and he says he has an emergency. He's out of toilet paper. And all I heard was uncontrolled laughing on the other end of the phone. And they said, hey, we're not busy. We will go check on him just to make sure he's okay. So they went and checked on him, and he was okay, thankfully. And they did bring him some toilet paper.
It's a good story. Every once in a while here we have wellness checks in the villages. And unfortunately, sometimes they don't turn out successfully.
Yes.
But we are having a show on September 29th. There are some tickets still available, good seats. It's a show with 32 tables of 8, and it's a reserved seat show. So when you go to our website, which is simply
My all events in Improv 2925.
you'll be taken to the site where you can buy tickets, learn about the show. Our improv club here in the Villages is a 501c3, and we're dedicated to helping graduating seniors from the Villages Charter High School who have shown a propensity to do things in the area of performing arts. And we give out scholarships every year. Last year we gave out $4,000 in scholarships. So all the proceeds of the show go into this scholarship fund.
That's an amazing thing because we're giving back to the community. Plus, we get something out of it too. As a performer, it's always great to see people laugh. It's almost like a drug because you see them enjoying themselves. Even though when you're doing it to a crowd, you don't see into the crowd the whole time when you're up there on stage, but you can hear them laughing. And the more they laugh, the better we actually get. I feel that it is such a good thing because we feed off that.
We do about, I'm going to say, 8 public shows a year. Half of them are on stages where we have the lights in our eyes and we really can't see much past the first row. And the other half are small private parties or other clubs employ us to do a show for them. We did a show for the South of 60 Club recently. We have one coming up for the So Long Island Club. I love that name. And the shows in smaller rooms where the audience isn't separated from the performers by a high stage allows for a lot more interaction.
I love it when we're able to bring audience members up to the stage or up with the group to participate with us. That's some of the highlights because they also find out that you don't have to be funny. You just have to be yourself.
That's right.
And they sit there, they come up and they volunteer and you help them out a little bit, giving them little hints what to say and how to say it. And they do it. They come back and they bring another memory back with them to talk about when they head back home or when they visit other friends who didn't come to the show.
We've learned that in a 90-minute show, we'd like to get 12 to 16 audience members up on stage in various scenes. Some of the parts are very easy, where the audience member only has to do things on stage but not say a word. Other scenes, the audience members make noises as opposed to saying words, like the sound of a gun would be bang.
Oh, you were asking me earlier about one of my favorite things to do, and sound effects is one of those. They get up there and they have to make the sound effects and they're going, what does this sound like? And make it up, and they do. And then sometimes you look at them and go, wow, you're funnier than I am.
Yeah. Well, sometimes when they got to do the sound of a gunshot, they go bang, and the actor says, oh, I guess I had a silencer on that gun.
Yes, exactly.
It makes it a very funny scene. And really, there's no pressure on the people who get up.
No, it's all in good fun, and they enjoy it, and they become part of the show. And maybe that's a future improv performer, too.
We've had that happen.
Yes.
Where some people who've gotten up on stage have joined the club. We meet every month of the year, the first 4 Mondays of the month. So if you take a month like September coming up, that's got 5 Mondays. So the 5th Monday is a show.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun on stage, and our audience members have a lot of fun. And we've discovered that the more audience members we can get up on stage, the earlier in the show we can do that, that works well. And then there are audience members who don't want to come up on stage but have funny ideas. So we put 3x5 cards on each table. And we say, on the 3x5 cards, write something that you'd like to see the players act out. And we put them all in a hat. Okay, like the old TV shows.
Scenes from a hat.
Scenes from a hat on Whose Line Is It Anyway? And what we do is backstage, one of my ladies in the club will censor the cards. Okay, if someone's put a bad idea up there, we will not put that one on stage. Okay, like I said, from the stage, you can't see everyone who's in the audience. So if there are any 13 or 14-year-olds in the audience, we don't want to say bad things.
No, definitely not.
Okay, definitely not. No. So we censor those cards. If the audience member puts on the card something like, what were the names of the 7 dwarfs that were rejected by Disney? And we asked our members to come up with the names. What would be a name of the dwarf that was rejected?
One of the names could be, I don't know how to do that. Or I'm the cook that makes people sick.
Or a dwarf named Sleazy. That one always gets a laugh.
Yeah, I can imagine so. Now, the thing is,
Another name that would get a laugh would be Stoner.
yes, and things you don't expect people to say is what is actually funny. One of the things that I always try to do is bring them up to a punchline or something and not deliver the punchline, let the audience come up with their own punchline, and they all come up with different punchlines.
Right.
They finish it themselves.
Let's take a short break and listen to an Alzheimer's tip from Dr. Craig Curtis. We're talking about Alzheimer's disease. What is the diagnostic process to split the difference between someone who has Alzheimer's and someone who has a different form of dementia?
That's a great question, Mike. So Alzheimer's disease in the past was a clinical diagnosis, and we would talk to the patient and the family, and they would tell us about this progressive memory loss and maybe other symptoms that had been occurring over the past 3 to 5 years. And we would simply test their memory and maybe wait another year or two and retest their memory to look for decline. Nowadays, it's completely different. As a matter of fact, now our diagnostic process involves actually looking for amyloid in the brain, which we now know causes Alzheimer's disease.
How do you see amyloid in the brain?
We can see amyloid in the brain using PET scans, which is the most common way. And now we're working on using blood tests. In fact, there's already one blood test that is FDA cleared to detect amyloid in the blood, which is reflecting amyloid in the brain.
And that would be the differential between another type of dementia and Alzheimer's.
Yes, sir.
With over 20 years of experience studying brain health, Dr. Curtis's goal is to educate the village's community on how to live a longer, healthier life. To learn more, visit his website, craigcurtismd.com, or call 352-500-5252 to attend a free seminar.
Thank you, Dr. Curtis. So we were talking about different skits that we've done in the shows and what our favorites are. What is another one of your favorites, John?
Another one of my favorites, we've already talked about sound effects and newscasters. Another one is, it's a backwards interview. And so you run it backwards and you start out with, thank you for coming and we'll see you at next week's show. And you back up the interview. That is always hilarious because you don't know what you're thanking them for because you're saying thank you before the person actually tells the interview what's going on.
And we ask the audience to tell the interviewer and the interviewee what the interview was all about at the beginning, and then they go backwards. It's terribly funny. Another one I like is the experts game, where we bring in an expert on the field and we ask the audience what the field of study was that this person is an expert on, and they do the interview. But that interview isn't visually interpreted by a third player. About half of the laughs in the scene are what the third player does in the physicality.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it, facial expressions that are done. Also, one of my other ones that we enjoy doing is one that's called a press conference, where the person gets up, he's holding a press conference. He or she does not know what the press conference is about. And there's a group of people that ask questions to the person giving the press conference. What are you going to do with your spare time? And this person doesn't know what he retired from. And he has to figure that out. He or she has to figure it out just by the questions we ask. And we get the ideas from the audience. One was Santa Claus was retiring and moving to the villages. We did that once up in Michigan, actually. And so we start out, why are you retiring? Oh, I got tired of it. What about all your co-workers? Leading off to the elves and the reindeer and people like that. And they would have to figure it out without being told. And that's a lot of fun because the audience is laughing because they're giving nonsensical answers at times because they don't know what they retired from.
We are always trying to get better at improv. In July, a group of about 10 of us went down to the Sarasota Improv Festival in Sarasota for 2 days, and we watched 5 shows a night from improv troupes from all over the world. And all day Saturday, we took improv courses one of the courses that I took was on improv musicals, how to do an improv musical. That's something we've shied away from, but we're probably going to, in 2026, do that. I participated. I'm not a great singer, and we learned how to do it, how to put it together. In fact, the group that trained me is called Shitsprobe, SHITZ, and that's a knockoff of what on Broadway they call the first reading through of a musical with the orchestra. And in that seminar, which was fully participatory, I learned how we can create an opening musical number from an audience take.
Wow. That's something that I can't carry a tune in a bucket. And when,
Believe it, you don't have to.
I understand that whenever I get called to do that, it becomes funnier because I cannot sing. I cannot put that ideas together. I don't have that gene. My wife has it. I don't have that gene in my body.
Wayne Richards has done our musical accompaniment for many of our shows for the past few years. And when he started with me, he said, Mike, I can do anything on a keyboard, but tell me, what key do you guys sing in? And I looked at him and said, Wayne, we sing in the key of I for improv. You'll just have to make it fit. Anyway, this group, Shitsprobe, is going to be at the Sharon, I believe, or on February 17th, I believe. Tickets go on sale in December. Make sure you watch that because our opening number will be in their style. And they've actually made a commitment to do a little bit of a seminar for us on the day that they're here in the Villages.
I look forward to that, definitely.
Oh, yeah, that should be a great meeting. We may need a bigger room. But we have fun in improv. We do our meetings in two halves. First of all, I have a theory of operation that we're all little children in big bodies. And so we have to have a recess. So midway through about 7, we take a recess and have some snacks that we bring in. And I always tell first-timers that the second half of the meeting is going to be a lot funnier than the first. That sugar rush really helps.
Yeah.
Now, that's not an endorsement of sugar. It's just the fact that people get a little bit looser, and it just makes the second half go a lot faster.
Definitely.
We were talking about improv games that we play. One of the games that we've had up in show is called Inappropriate Roommates. And that's where we get from the audience 3 bad habits that each one of the roommates have.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Have you heard about Mature Adults with Donna Hoover and Mike Roth? Yes, this is my second podcast. And Donna and I are going to be addressing subjects which are significant for seniors, especially seniors living here in the Villages. The easiest way to hear the show is to look it up on Apple Podcasts. Look for Mature Adults with Donna and Mike. We'll be looking for you there. You can also find us on Mature Adults with Donna and Mike, all spelled out, buzzsprout.com.
Now, when you look at that, it goes back to we've all lived with somebody. It could be we live with them now.
Yeah. I remember this. The first take was they laughed too much. And we had an actress in our company who could laugh for about 30 minutes straight. And then we had another one that was too much flatulence.
Bodily functions is always a great topic. Is definitely something that we have. I tell my wife it's not me, it's the cats.
And then the third habit in that scene was that particular player fell asleep in the middle of a sentence. And it was always hilarious when we put it on stage.
It's interesting because, once again, we're taking from real life. And real life can be funny. And it should be, because we should all be enjoying life. Improv is another way of doing it.
You're looking at it through another lens.
Yes.
It's like when you were a kid, you went to a fun house and they had a curved mirror, and all of a sudden you were very short or very tall or very fat.
That's true. What's interesting with improv, though, that I like about it, especially in the group here in the Village, we stay away from a lot of the political comment because we hear enough of that on the news and things like that. So we stay away from that. And it's great because we don't have to worry about, we know what is funny, and politics nowadays isn't funny like it used to be.
No, you only get in trouble with politics and religion. So we leave those two subjects
Definitely,
out.
definitely.
And we make a decision. Are we dealing with a younger crowd or an older crowd? And we tune to them. And what they write on those little 3x5 cards before the show makes a big difference because we actually read them.
The funny thing is, and I've been a recipient of this, you pull a card out because we not only do it to help lines, but scenes from a hat. There's a show or a skit that we do where you've got to incorporate things that they said. You go, my mother told me, and you read what's off the card. And you do that.
We call that pickup lines.
Pickup lines, yes.
Yeah, when the cast was younger, we used to throw the cards on the ground, scatter them around the stage, fold them in half on the stage, make it slightly easier to pick up. Now, because we're seniors here, we put the cards out in piles, and we ask each player to pick up at least 5 of them and put them in their pocket. Okay, when they finish with the card, they move it from a left pocket to a right pocket.
And people are really thrilled when you read their suggestion that they put on there. And they'll go, you'll see them in the audience go, that was mine.
If it was a good one.
Good one. Other ones, and I'm sure you've run into this before, Mike, I picked up the card and I go, I can't read a thing they wrote on this.
Those are called doctor's cards. Yeah. I'll toss those up in the air.
Yeah, it's okay. Whoever this is, I'm really sorry, but I can't read that handwriting.
And some cards come up to me to read. I just randomly pull a card out of the hat. And when I read it, I say, oh, my God, I can't say that in front of an audience. I rip the card in half and throw it away.
Saying itself is funny, too.
We've done all types of scenes. We sometimes ask the audience for what the genre of the scene is. And I love it when they say, I want it to be a dark 1930s movie.
Yeah. And those are fun to do, or one where you have to give a narrative during the movie. And you stand up and say, she thinks she knows what's going to happen, but it's not really going to happen that way. And then you back away and do the scene, and then something else happens. So there's so many different things, and you got to be on your toes because the idea that comes in your head may be an idea that no one else had thought about, and it may go to a different way. And so you scramble a little bit sometimes, and the rule of improv is you never say no.
Yes.
And you continue whatever you're given, you work with it.
You say yes, and then what we're looking for is something ridiculous, okay, to get to what we call the game of the scene. If you think of the old Jack Benny show, the game of his show was Jack Benny is cheap.
That's true.
Everything was about Benny not spending money.
Yeah. And the thing is, we look at all of this and we get the ideas from the audience, and the audience is participating just by giving us the ideas. And it's so important that they're participating because a lot of times the people out there are a lot funnier than we are, have a lot funnier ideas, but they let us then add our expressions to their ideas.
When the audience is asleep, it's a much more difficult audience.
Yes, it is.
So I always tell people when they come to our shows, bring your hearing aids. Don't leave them at home. Bring an extra set of batteries so they don't die during the course of the show. And if you're a lip reader, sit closer to the stage. Buy your tickets earlier.
Yes. But we do enough shows that hopefully people will come out. And after a while, we start to get a following. And people, oh, you're doing a show. Great. When is it? Oh, I'm going to bring more friends. So hopefully you'll bring a lot of friends to our September show. It's a lot more fun when you're there with people also sitting at the table because you've shared a lot of the same life experience.
One of the hardest things for me is when people call me a week or two before the show and say, hey, I need 6 tickets for me and my friends. And I've got to say, the show sold out 2 weeks ago. You waited too long.
Buy early, buy often.
It's not unusual to sell out a show 3 or 4 weeks before the show date. And that happens regularly here. This year we did one show at the Old Mill Playhouse. I don't know if we're going to do another one there. The idea was at the Old Mill Playhouse, there are no seating restrictions in the sense that people who live in Beaumont or Wildwood or Leesburg can come to the show, and they don't need a visitor ID or a villager ID.
Yeah, guest pass.
Guest pass, right.
Yeah.
But probably in 26 we'll do at least one more show there.
That would be great.
Yeah. And their theater has a few more seats, but it's not table style, it's audience style. So they've got about 280 seats in the theater. Those are good shows. And they increased the size of the stage that was there the last time we did a show this year. So that'll be a better stage.
Oh, okay. That was the first one I ever did there. So I didn't know the old stage.
That was the old stage.
Right.
Okay. The platform in front of the movie screen was raised about 2 feet, and there's only one staircase for the 16 players to get up and down from. It was a little bit difficult. Now they have 2 staircases.
Wow.
Yes, and they reinforced it so when 4 people are dancing on the stage, it doesn't rock up and down. That would be a big improvement. But we are constantly getting better at improv. And again, if you want to come out just to see a meeting, we're going to be at Rohan the first 4 Mondays of the month from 6:30 to about 8:20. As a group, we typically go out to either Kumu's or Paisanos for a snack and something to drink after a practice. And probably before the end of 2025, we're going to be having some performances in something called the Laugh Lounge over at called the 4th Friday of the month. But more details on that to follow. John, I want to thank you for being part of the show today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed this, and I look forward to doing it again.
Good.
Remember, our next episode will be released next Friday at 9 a.m. Should you want to become a major supporter of the show or have questions, please contact us at mike@rothvoice.com. This is a shout out for supporters. Tweet Coleman, Ed Williams, Duane, and Dr. Craig Curtis at K2 in the Villages. We will be hearing more from Dr. Curtis with short Alzheimer's tips each week. If you know someone who should be on the show, contact us at mike@rothvoice.com. The way our show grows is with your help. Text your friends about this show. If you enjoyed listening, or just tell your friends about the show. We thank everyone for listening. The content of the show is copyrighted by Roth Voice 2025. All rights reserved.